The year is 1944 and the Atlantic trembles with uncertainty. In our reality, the great battleship Tirpitz hid in the fjords of Norway, a phantom threat that haunted Allied convoys but rarely left her cage. Missouri, the newest pride of the United States Navy, sailed instead to the Pacific, where she would become a symbol of peace, the stage for Japan's surrender. But imagine another story. Imagine Tirpitz surviving the RAF bombings that crippled her camouflage nets holding, her crew repairing her engines in defiance of fate. Berlin, desperate for a miracle, orders her out. She will not fight alone. A screen of German destroyers, sleek hunters armed with torpedoes and quick-firing guns, surround her like loyal hounds. Their mission, to bleed the Atlantic lifeline, to force the Allies to divert strength, and to make the world remember Germany's last great battleship. Across the ocean, Missouri is dispatched, alone. The Americans want a statement, a decisive blow that will erase the shadow of Tirpitz once and for all. No escorting cruisers, no protective fleet of carriers, just one battleship bristling with 9 16-inch guns, radar-guided and fast, sent as a challenge and a promise. Picture it, the storm-lashed North Atlantic, skies bruised with gray, swells rising like mountains. On one side, Missouri, 45,000 tons of American steel, engines roaring as she cuts through waves, her crew young but hardened, eyes sharp on radar screens. On the other, Tirpitz, massive and scarred but still proud, her German destroyers fanning out like wolves before the kill. It is not a duel of equals, it is one lion against a pack. On Missouri's bridge, Captain William Callahan studies the map. His officers exchange worried glances. They know the battleship can stand toe-to-toe with Tirpitz herself, but the destroyers change everything. Torpedoes can cripple even the mightiest ship, and there are more than a dozen tubes waiting to unleash their deadly schools. Callahan knows the only way to survive is to strike Tirpitz fast, to break the heart of the enemy before the destroyers close in. Meanwhile, on Tirpitz, Admiral Carl Topp steadies himself. He has waited years for this day. The ship they once called the Lonely Queen of the North now sails with companions, destroyers that dart at her side, their guns already trained outward. His orders are clear. If Missouri falls, even at terrible cost, Germany will prove she can still strike at the Allies' heart. For his sailors, who have spent years under the weight of expectation, the chance to fight is almost a relief. The first contact comes at dawn. Missouri's radar paints the sea with glowing arcs, her operators leaning over screens, tracing distant echoes. Multiple targets. Large contact in the center, one of them mutters. Callahan knows at once. That is Tirpitz. The smaller signatures spread out are her escorts. The German formation is already moving to encircle. The order is given. Battle stations. Klaxons wail through Missouri's corridors. Sailors sprint to their posts. Shells are hoisted into breeches, powder bags stacked in neat rows. The destroyer crews, aboard ships with names like Z-33 and Z-34, do the same, racing to torpedo tubes, ready to unleash the one weapon that can level a Titan. The ocean itself seems to hold its breath. A line of rain sweeps across the horizon, masking Tirpitz for a moment. Then the veil lifts, and the two great ships see each other. Missouri fires first. Her forward turrets erupt in thunder, tongues of flame licking the sky. 9 16-inch shells arc high, vanishing into clouds before plunging down toward Tirpitz. The German battleship responds in kind. Her 8 15-inch guns roar, the recoil shaking her entire frame. The sea between them erupts with towering plumes of water, geysers slamming down onto decks, spray soaking men at their stations. Neither ship scores a hit yet, but the message is clear. The duel has begun. The destroyers leap forward, their engines howling, white wakes foaming as they dart toward Missouri's flanks. They are fast, small and deadly, weaving through the storm like predators. Missouri's secondary batteries open fire, 5-inch guns barking, tracers stitching the sky and sea. One destroyer staggers as shells rake her deck, flames bursting from her bridge, but she presses on. For the men on Missouri, the tension is unbearable. The battleship's armor can withstand heavy shells, but torpedoes are another matter. If even 2 or 3 strike true, she could list, slow, and become an easy target for Tirpitz's finishing blow. Callahan knows this, and so he orders his ship not to retreat, but to charge. Missouri plows straight toward Tirpitz, guns hammering, daring the German destroyers to cross her bow. It is a gamble, a dance with death. But in war, hesitation is fatal, and so the stage is set. Missouri, one ship against many, racing forward through the storm. Tirpitz encircled by her pack, bracing to deliver a final legendary strike. The world watches. Or would have, had history unfolded this way. The North Atlantic has become a crucible, and only one Titan can emerge alive. The storm is alive with fire and steel. Missouri charges through the gray seas, her prow slamming into waves that rise like cliffs. Her big guns speak again, 9 16-inch shells shrieking into the sky. Each one is a mountain of steel, flying farther than the eye can see, guided by radar, driven by the precision of American industry. Across the distance, Tirpitz answers. Her 15-inch guns thunder, their concussion rolling like a drumbeat across the ocean. The German shells crash into the water near Missouri, geysers towering over the deck, drenching sailors in salt spray. One shell lands close enough to rattle the hull, bolts shivering in their sockets. But the American battleship presses on, unflinching. Around Tirpitz, her destroyers fan outward, moving with predatory speed. White wakes snake across the waves, torpedo tubes already swinging toward their target. Their captains know their role: to distract, to harass, to unleash torpedoes that might cripple the American giant long enough for Tirpitz to finish her. Missouri's 5-inch batteries open fire. The chatter of her secondary guns fills the air, tracers ripping into the storm. A German destroyer, Z-34, takes a direct hit on her bow. Fire bursts outward, men scrambling as flames engulf the foredeck. Still, she keeps charging, her torpedo crews racing to ready their launch. On Missouri's bridge, Captain Callahan grips the rail. His face is a mask of calm, but inside, he knows how close the danger is. "Keep the bow toward Tirpitz," he orders, his voice steady. "Do not let them box us in." The ship obeys, engines straining as Missouri cuts a straight line toward her rival, daring the destroyers to cross her path. Then the first torpedo wakes appear, thin, ghostly lines of foam cutting across the sea. Alarms blare. Missouri heaves to port, her rudder biting hard into the swell. The massive ship shudders, water crashing over the forecastle, but she evades. Barely. Torpedoes streak past, exploding harmlessly in her wake. The crew cheers, but the fight is far from over. Another wave of destroyers closes in, firing their guns, spraying the battleship with smaller caliber fire. Shell fragments clang against Missouri's armor, splinters hissing across her deck. One lookout falls, blood staining the steel, but the ship does not slow. Missouri's big guns reload, fire again, a broadside thunders out, and one shell crashes into Tirpitz's upper deck, tearing through her superstructure. Smoke rises, black and thick, men scattering as fires spread. German damage control teams rush to smother the flames, their shouts lost in the roar of engines and guns. Yet Tirpitz is still alive, still dangerous. Her reply comes swift. A full salvo slams into the sea just off Missouri's starboard side. The shockwave rattles her bones, spray blinding the bridge. One shell skips across the waves and smashes into Missouri's aft superstructure. The explosion hurls sailors across the deck, tearing open bulkheads. Smoke billows upward, communications falter, but the ship holds steady. And then another torpedo spread. Z-33, charging headlong, releases her deadly cargo. The crew aboard Missouri can see the flashes of tubes firing, the sleek silver bodies sliding into the water. Alarms wail again. "Hard starboard," the helmsman shouts. The battleship groans under the strain as she swings, her massive bulk cutting across the swell. Two torpedoes streak past her bow, but one detonates close to the hull, a towering column of water crashing down. The shock rocks the ship, men tumbling, equipment scattering. Deep below, compartments flood, sailors wading through icy water, scrambling to seal breaches. For the first time, Missouri feels the teeth of the wolf pack. Still, she fights back. Her secondaries roar, tearing into Z-33's bridge. Fire engulfs the destroyer, her crew leaping into the sea as the ship slows. Crippled, another German destroyer, Z-32, darts forward, but Missouri's forward guns catch her in the open. A 16-inch shell strikes amidships, splitting her in two, the explosion sending fire and debris skyward. In seconds, the ship vanishes beneath the waves. The battle rages in close quarters now. Tirpitz, her flanks guarded by what remains of her escorts, turns broadside. Her turrets swing, their barrels dark against the storm. She unleashes another devastating salvo, shells screaming across the short distance. One strikes Missouri's armored belt. The detonation is massive, flooding compartments deep inside the ship. Bulkheads groan, water surges, but the American Leviathan does not falter. On her decks, sailors fight fires, drag the wounded to safety, reload guns with bloodied hands. The destroyers still prowl, darting in and out, their torpedoes forcing Missouri to twist and turn. She is surrounded, one ship against many, her armor battered, her radar damaged, but her spirit unbroken. For a moment, the storm clears. Through the smoke and rain, Missouri and Tirpitz lock eyes across the waves. Two titans, each scarred, each wounded, yet neither willing to yield. And as their crews steel themselves for the next exchange, the battle teeters on the edge of destiny. The sea is a cauldron of chaos. Smoke rolls low across the waves, black columns marking where ships have already fallen. Missouri pushes on, her guns pounding, her decks slick with seawater and blood. She is one ship against a squadron, yet she refuses to bow. Around her, the German destroyers swarm like wolves. Z-35 darts in close, her torpedo tubes gleaming in the rain. She lets loose a spread, 5 deadly fish slashing across the sea. Missouri swings hard, the helmsman shouting, the rudder straining. The battleship leans, water crashing across her decks. 3 torpedoes streak wide, but one detonates near her stern. The blast hurls men from their stations, floods compartments below, and for a heartbeat, Missouri shudders as though struck in the spine. Damage control races to seal the breaches. Deep inside the ship, men work waist-deep in freezing water, hammering plates, dragging hoses, patching holes under the flicker of emergency lights. They know their ship must not falter. If Missouri slows, she dies. The German destroyers sense blood. They tighten the circle, pouring gunfire into the American giant. Smaller shells spark and clang against Missouri's thick armor, but every hit chips away at her strength. One burst smashes into her forward secondary battery, killing gunners at their posts, leaving twisted wreckage where men once stood. Missouri answers with fury. Her 5-inch batteries track Z-35, spitting flame. A direct hit tears through the destroyer's magazine. The German ship erupts in a blinding flash, breaking apart as men are thrown into the sea. Another destroyer, Z-30, tries to close from the port side, but Missouri's secondary gunners catch her too. Tracers rake across her bridge, flames engulf her superstructure. Screaming, listing hard, she slips beneath the waves, gone in minutes. But the pack still has teeth. Z-36 charges in, her crew knowing it may be their last attack. Under a hail of Missouri's shells, they launch their torpedoes at point-blank range. One fish finds its mark. It slams into Missouri's starboard side, a deafening explosion ripping through her hull. The battleship lists sharply, alarms blaring, men thrown from ladders and passageways. Fires erupt along the deck, smoke choking the air. On the bridge, Captain Callahan steadies himself against the shock. He knows the destroyers are sacrificing themselves, each one burning, to give Tirpitz the killing blow. Yet he also knows Missouri cannot retreat. To turn away now is to die. "Keep firing," he growls, his voice hoarse. "We break them here." And so she does. Missouri's great guns roar again, each salvo tearing into Tirpitz's massive frame. One shell plunges deep, detonating in her engine rooms. Flames leap high, smoke belches from her funnels. Another shell smashes into her superstructure, blasting apart radar and rangefinders. German sailors fight to keep her alive, but their ship groans, her proud form scarred and burning. Tirpitz responds with her own thunder. Her 15-inch shells scream across the waves, one slamming into Missouri's deck near turret 3. The explosion tears men apart, splinters steel and sends shockwaves down into the magazines. For a terrifying moment, the crew fears a chain reaction, but the blast doors hold. The ship lives on. The duel has become a slaughterhouse. Destroyers hurl themselves at Missouri, each one firing its last torpedoes before being gutted by her guns. Z-31 burns and sinks. Z-37 limps away, smoke trailing before a final hit detonates her boilers, sending her down in a thunderous roar. The sea foams with oil, debris, and the cries of men clinging to wreckage. But Missouri is bleeding too. Fires rage uncontrolled, flooding spreads in her lower decks, her list growing. Her once proud silhouette is jagged with wounds, her radar crippled, her crew exhausted. She is still afloat, but every man aboard knows that another torpedo strike could spell her end. For the first time, the duel is narrowed. The destroyer screen lies shattered. Some sunk, some burning, some fleeing into the storm. The battlefield clears and only the 2 giants remain. Missouri, alone but unbowed. Tirpitz, limping but still bristling with guns, her crew fighting with the desperation of a doomed Reich. The sea falls into a strange hush as though pausing to witness what comes next. Both battleships turn broadside, their turrets swinging, their crews braced. Smoke drifts between them, rain lashes the decks, the horizon glows with fire. This is no longer wolf against lion. This is Titan against Titan. The final clash is about to begin. The North Atlantic holds its breath. The wolf pack is gone, reduced to burning hulks or swallowed by the sea. Now only 2 leviathans remain, Missouri and Tirpitz, each scarred, each staggering, yet still alive. Missouri steadies herself. Fires rage on her decks, black smoke twisting into the storm, but her gunners reload with trembling hands, faces blackened with soot. Below, men wade waist-deep in flooding compartments, pumping, patching, praying. They know their survival depends on keeping the ship afloat just a little longer. Tirpitz limps through the waves, her once proud hull torn and twisted. Flames gush from her midsection, smoke pours from shattered superstructure, but her guns are not silent. Admiral Top stands on her bridge, the heat of fire burning at his back. His men look to him, eyes wide with exhaustion and fear, yet still they obey. Tirpitz must fight until her last breath. The range closes. Barely 10,000 yards now. Missouri swings broadside, her 3 turrets aligned. A voice cuts through the smoke. "Fire!" The thunder is apocalyptic. 9 16-inch shells soar skyward, then crash down. One slams into Tirpitz's forward turret, the massive gun mount lifting and splitting, flames spewing upward as ammunition ignites. Another plunges into her hull, detonating near her engines. Power flickers. The great ship slows, her screws struggling, her body groaning like a dying beast. Yet Tirpitz strikes back. Her aft turrets answer with a salvo that screams toward Missouri. One shell smashes into her forward deck, blasting open hatches, tearing apart guns. Another slams near her waterline, shaking her from bow to stern. Men are hurled across passageways. Steel shrieks under the pressure. Missouri staggers, but she does not fall. The duel becomes relentless, two giants trading blow for blow. Missouri's radar is gone, her fire directed by scorched-eyed spotters and instinct. Tirpitz fires slower now, her crew battered, her systems crippled, but every shell is a threat. The sea boils with impacts, great geysers of water rising between them. Then Missouri lands the decisive strike. A shell plunges deep into Tirpitz's hull, striking her forward magazine. For a moment, silence. Then the world splits open. An eruption tears through the German battleship, a column of fire blasting skyward, lifting turrets and decks into the storm. The explosion is so great that Missouri's crew feel the heat on their faces even miles away. Tirpitz lists violently, her hull splitting, water surging into shattered compartments. Men leap into the sea, clinging to wreckage as their ship groans and tips. Admiral Top does not move. He grips the rail, eyes fixed on the enemy still standing. In his heart, he knows the Queen of the North has met her end. With a roar that echoes across the Atlantic, Tirpitz rolls to her side. Her stern lifts, her bow plunges, and she disappears beneath the waves. The sea swallows her whole, leaving only oil, debris, and the cries of the survivors. Missouri is left alone in the storm. Her decks are scarred, her hull breached, her crew exhausted and bloodied. She lists slightly, her silhouette battered, but her flag still flies. The ship that in our reality became the vessel of peace has, in this alternate history, become the executioner of Germany's last Titan. As silence settles over the sea, Missouri slows, her surviving crew leaning against rails, staring into the wreckage. Some cheer, some weep, others simply stand in stunned silence. They know what they have done and what it has cost. In our timeline, Tirpitz died hidden in a fjord, struck down by bombers, never facing the great ships of the Allies. Missouri ended the war not with blood, but with a pen on her decks, hosting the surrender that brought peace. But here, in this imagined storm, Missouri fights alone against Tirpitz and her destroyer pack and survives. One ship against many. A story of endurance, sacrifice, and defiance, written in steel and fire. As the American battleship turns slowly toward home, the ocean begins to heal. Flames sink, wreckage drifts, the cries fade into the wind. The sea keeps its secrets, but it never forgets. And so we are left with a question. If the Missouri had faced Tirpitz in open battle, with destroyers at her side, would history remember her as the ship of peace, or as the lone warrior who ended the age of battleships and fire? If you want to imagine more battles that never were, more hidden paths history might have taken, then stay with us. There are countless stories still beneath the waves, waiting to rise again.